So you've released 30,000 criminals under the First Step Act. Okay? And how many of them, before you released them, did you contact any of their victims to say we're about to let this guy out?
Senator, it's my understanding that that notification happens through the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I will check into that and get back to you.
You don't know?
Senator, I don't.
Have you followed up with the U.S. attorneys to say, do you have a system to say, hey, we're about to let this guy out? Would we want to be sure the victim's contacted?
As a former victim's advocate, I share that value, that victim notification should happen. I'll check on the process.
But you don't know if it's happening?
That's correct, Senator.
Wow. Okay, of the 30,000 criminals you let free, how many of them have come back? Have committed a crime again, hurt somebody else?
So that number is one that we're still looking at as it relates to the recidivism rate for those that were released on the First Step Act.
You don't have any idea?
No, Senator.
You don't have anybody at the Bureau that can count?
Watch Senator John Kennedy's confrontation with Bureau of Prisons Director Colette Peters as she admits she has no idea how many of the 30,000 criminals released under the First Step Act have reoffended. This is a U.S. Senator discovering in real time that a federal agency with 40,000 employees has spent 6 years implementing major criminal justice reform without bothering to track whether it works. Kennedy's frustration builds as Peters repeatedly admits she doesn't know basic facts. Whether victims were notified before releases, whether U.S. attorneys have notification systems, what percentage of her employees actually come to work, and most critically, how many released inmates committed new crimes. The exchange becomes increasingly heated as Kennedy walks through the absurd timeline. The First Step Act was passed in 2018. It's now 2024. That's 6 full years, and the person running the Bureau of Prisons cannot tell Congress if public safety improved or deteriorated. Let's dive into the main video.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you again, Senator.
I'm a big fan. Director Peters, you're the director of the Bureau of Prisons, is that right?
That's correct, sir.
You used to run the correction system in Oregon, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Oregon legalized drugs, is that right?
That's correct.
Oregon's about to reverse that, is that correct?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the policy proposed to reverse that.
Oh, you've just ignored Oregon?
Oregon still has a very special place in my heart, sir.
Okay. You haven't read any of the articles about the reversal?
I haven't, Senator.
You don't know anything about it?
Correct, sir.
Okay, wow. You're in charge of implementing the First Step Act, Director?
That's correct.
How many criminals have you released under the First Step Act?
So First Step Act for the overall release since the initiation of the First Step Act is, I have that exact number in front of me.
You don't know off the top of your head?
Sorry, Senator. So 70% of those that were released, we have about 30,000 individuals that have been released since the passage of the First Step Act.
All right, so you've released 30,000 criminals under the First Step Act. Okay? And how many of them, before you released them, did you contact any of their victims to say we're about to let this guy out?
Senator, it's my understanding that that notification happens through the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I will check into that and get back to you.
You don't know?
Senator, I don't.
Have you followed up with the U.S. attorneys to say, do you have a system to say, hey, we're about to let this guy out? We want to be sure the victim's contacted?
As a former victim's advocate, I share that value, that victim notification should happen. I'll check on the process.
But you don't know if it's happening?
That's correct, Senator.
Wow. Okay, of the 30,000 criminals you let free, how many of them have come back? Have committed a crime again, hurt somebody else?
So that number is one that we're still looking at as it relates to the recidivism rate for those that were released on the First Step Act.
You don't have any idea?
No, Senator.
You don't have anybody at the Bureau that can count?
I do not have that number in front of me today,
So let me
Senator.
get this straight. The First Step Act was passed in 2018. This is 2024, am I right so far?
That's correct.
That's 6 years. And in 6 years, you've let 30,000 criminals go, right?
That's correct.
And you don't have the slightest idea how many of them committed another crime and came back.
I don't have that number in front of me today,
And you
sir.
run the Bureau of Prisons.
That's correct.
And how many employees do you have?
About 40,000 employees.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. General, I know you got a lot to do, but could you give us a hand here? And let's find out whether the First Step Act worked. And how many, if we've released 30,000 criminals after 6 years, our director here doesn't know how many have committed another crime and come back? Can you help us?
Senator, I can certainly follow up on that issue. I will just say in terms of work we've done in the past, for example, on compassionate release, and going to the Bureau of Prisons, this is before Director Peters was there, and asking them for data on compassionate release, because that was one of the issues that has come up.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I'm not talking about compassionate release.
No, I understand.
You know,
I'm
my
just saying-
colleague said, we were told that it would save money and it would be in the interest of public safety to release criminals from prison. I didn't vote for it, but the majority rules. And so Congress did it. And Ms. Peters, Director Peters at the Bureau of Prisons, and her colleagues released 30,000 criminals, all of whom are there for a reason, okay? They didn't just go to prison for a free toaster. They were there for a reason. And so her department let them go, and after 6 years, we don't have the slightest idea. Not a single one of the 40,000 of her employees know how many have committed a second crime and come back. So how the hell are we supposed to figure out whether it worked?
Senator,
Your people ought to hide their head in a bag, Director, that you can't come here in front of this Congress and answer that question. I'm sorry, I interrupted you with my speech.
No, that's okay. I was just going to, my bottom line point on it was, I've often looked to those questions on things like compassionate release and other programs. And one of the challenges we found is the department just doesn't have good data on that. Halfway houses. Congress is spending about $500 million a year on halfway houses. There's really not great recidivism data on that either. How well are they working?
Before we do this, we need to find out. Look, I believe in justice. I believe in treating everybody fairly. But there are people out there, I don't know why, if I make it to heaven, I'm going to ask. They're not mixed up. They're not confused. They're not sick. It's not that their mama or daddy didn't love them or not enough. They just hurt other people, and they take other people's stuff, and we have to separate them from society. And the director let 30,000 of these folks go and can't tell me today how many have come back. I just find it takes my breath away. With 40,000 people. How many of your 40,000 people are actually coming to work or are still working from home, Director?
The supermajority of our employees come to work every day because we're running 24/7
What percentage are coming to work every day?
The percentage is quite high. I don't have the exact
You don't
number,
know?
But
Well, maybe there's your problem.
the supermajority of our individuals come
If they're
to
not
work
coming
at
to
our
work, they
institutions.
can't give us the answer. I've gone over. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. This is why people hate government and don't trust government.
Senator John Kennedy's evisceration of Bureau of Prisons Director Colette Peters stands as a masterclass in congressional oversight and a powerful reminder of why we need relentless watchdogs in Washington. Kennedy didn't just expose administrative incompetence, he revealed the breathtaking arrogance of a federal bureaucracy that implements sweeping criminal justice changes without any intention of measuring results or protecting public safety. His questioning was effective, destroying every excuse Peters offered. The facts Kennedy extracted are simply inexcusable. 30,000 convicted criminals were released over 6 years, and not a single person at the Bureau of Prisons, despite having 40,000 employees, bothered to count how many reoffended. No victim notification systems verified. No follow-up with U.S. attorneys confirmed. No recidivism data collected despite billions in taxpayer dollars spent. Peters sat before Congress, the people's representatives, and admitted with stunning nonchalance that she simply didn't know if the First Step Act worked or failed. Kennedy's frustration was that of someone who understands that government exists to serve and protect citizens, not to conduct unmonitored social experiments. Kennedy's brilliance lay in his refusal to accept bureaucratic deflection. When Peters tried to hide behind claims of looking at data or having numbers not in front of her, Kennedy pressed harder, exposing these as the empty excuses they were. 6 years is an eternity in policy terms, more than enough time to establish tracking systems and generate reports. The senator's point was irrefutable. If you're going to release people who hurt other people and take other people's stuff, you have an absolute obligation to know whether they're doing it again. His closing statement captured what millions of Americans feel. This is exactly why people hate and distrust government. Agencies that operate without accountability, officials who come to hearings unprepared, programs that run for years without evaluation. This is the swamp that desperately needs draining. Kennedy proved once again that aggressive questioning, preparation, and unwillingness to accept non-answers are essential tools for forcing transparency from bureaucrats who would rather hide their failures than fix them. This wasn't just a great hearing moment, it was democratic accountability functioning exactly as the founders intended.